Somewhere, in the vaults of the Bank of Cox and Co. at Charing Cross, there is a well-worn and battered tin dispatch box, with my name, John H. Watson, M.D., late Indian Army, painted upon the lid. It is crammed with papers, nearly all of which are records of cases to illustrate the curious problems which Mr. Sherlock Holmes had at various times to examine. Some, and not the least interesting, were complete failures, and as such will hardly bear narrating, since no final explanation is forthcoming. What you are about to witness is, however, something that can only be classed as a complete anomaly in the canon of crimes which were investigated by Holmes and myself, and more importantly, reveals something of the nature of the man, which had hitherto remained hidden from sight, and could have been permanently, for which reason, alone. I firmly believe is desirous of the public's attention. Well, confound it, I can't find any cases that might interest us, Sherlock.
I wasn't aware that we were looking for cases, Watson. I certainly wasn't. Perhaps you have been aware, but I was reading The Strand.
Isn't that devoted to fiction? Short stories and the like? Hardly had you down for that sort of distraction.
Well now, my good friend, life's full of surprises, some big, some small.
I thought you were always looking for cases. That's what we do. Those that Scotland Yard are unable to bring prosecution to.
I disagree. We don't look for cases. The cases will look for us. Call it osmosis. In any case, pardon the pun, our housekeeper, Mrs. Hudson, is about to provide us with one.
Really? And how do you know that?
She is not, as far as I'm aware, due for any break. Certainly has not requested one, and yet her case is in the hallway. I really must stop using that word, case. Her bag, her valise, has been packed, and judging from the way it bulges out, no due care and attention has been made to the matter. It also, of a dull colour, is not a beach excursion. I suspect some sort of emergency. Did we order afternoon tea? Lapsang souchong?
I believe so.
Then it will not materialise. Ah, her footsteps. Let's see what she has to say.
Gentlemen, I'm afraid I'm unable to provide you with your usual afternoon tea today. I received a telegram from my sister. It says, "Come urgently, gravely ill."
Oh, that's terrible, Mrs. Hudson. Isn't it, Holmes?
That goes without saying, Watson. The illness of a loved one has no peer or comparison.
Yes, but it would be nice to hear it said like Dr. Watson just has. Just once.
You know perfectly well I am not good at these sentiments, Mrs. Hudson. You have been my housekeeper for over 10 years now.
Well, it's actually 12 years, Mr. Holmes.
That's why I said it was over 10 years, Miss Hudson.
But I guess details like that are irrelevant. What's 2 years between an employer and his skivvy, people's birthdays, wedding anniversaries, and the imminent death of a beloved sister who has, despite being older in years than myself, previously enjoyed good health and a strong constitution, mean little to a man of your rarefied concerns. I'd like to say it's been unlucky number 13 years, but I guess we can put the bunting up for that one next year, eh? Unlike the recently departed Victoria, God rest her soul, it won't be 60 years I'll be giving you, and that's a blessing. Anyway, if you'll excuse me, I have a train to catch. To Gravesend, as a matter of fact. I'm sure you'll appreciate that irony, won't you, Sherlock?
You take care, Mrs. Hudson. You will be missed.
May I inquire as to the nature of your sister's illness? I believe she's a housekeeper herself. Runs in the family, eh?
Thank you, Dr. Watson. I may say the same about you as well. More than a mere housekeeper, Mr. Holmes. My sister manages the affairs of a certain Lady Fairfield. I don't know what has happened to her, Mr. Holmes, I really don't. I know that household is seemingly afflicted at the moment. I've had letters from her about how the lady of the house has been acting increasingly out of sorts.
Oh, really? In what way, Mrs. Hudson?
As far as I can ascertain, she's been having visions, seeing fairies at the bottom of the garden and the like. Perhaps it's some sort of a sign.
Well, if you see them, why don't you ask him what the sign is?
Holmes, appalling.
Oh, don't you worry, Dr. Watson. After 12 years, I am used to him. However, I'm not leaving you entirely in the lurch. Just give me a couple of minutes.
You are unforgivable when you're in a mood.
In this most days, Watson, I rarely articulate it, though.
Well, continue not to articulate it, is my advice.
The population of Gravesend is, as far as I understand it, 19,000, about to become 18,999. Perhaps they ought to move en masse to spare their blushes in regard to their own inherent mortality.
Maybe you should be on your own.
Or institute a name change to something more positive, upbeat. How about Grave's not the end, not really, it isn't?
Flippant and offensive. How do you do it?
Thank you.
Since tea has temporarily been suspended, I might need something a little stronger to get me through your current mood.
Any excuse, hey?
Purely medicinal.
Alcohol has no medicinal properties. You, of all people, should know that. It's a fallacy.
Let's call it a placebo then, shall we? Anyway, your method of relaxation is not without question, and I don't mean your violin playing, which you are not that good at anyway.
Touché, Doctor, touché. Are you going to introduce yourself, young lady?
What?
Oh, you know I was here, did you?
I saw your reflection in my companion's whiskey glass, which he was waving around like a commercial street drunkard, and Mrs. Hudson had led us to expect something to occur.
Well, it has.
Depends on how you define occurrence.
So, you are the great detective, aren't you? The cool, arrogant Sherlock Holmes, ably assisted by his nice, affable, if rather bland companion, Dr. Witless.
It's actually Sherlock and Dr. Watson.
She's having you on, dear friend.
Well, as character assassinations go, it's succinct. And you are, miss?
Well, Mr. Holmes, I am.
As Mrs. Hudson felt she could leave you without a formal introduction, given the urgency of the matter, it was somebody she could trust. So I suspect you are a relative, and given your age, 24, a niece. Mrs. Hudson doesn't have children, to the best of my knowledge, unless Watson hears them up to no good. Your mother must be Agatha, then.
26, actually. Oh, well done, you. A niece spot on. Yes, Agatha is Mama, and I am Charlotte.
Well, I seem to be 2 years out in most regards at the moment. I can live with that. But your friends call you Lottie.
My friends can call me anything they like, as long as they call me. You are not in that category, Mr. Holmes. Dr. Watson, since you provide the human touch, you may address me as Lottie.
Oh, well. Well, thank you, Lottie. I like your name a lot, Lottie.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Watson, this isn't a bachelor's pad in Earl's Court. Well, half of that statement is technically true, but you see, Miss Charlotte
Doyle.
Miss Doyle, Watson does have a wife at home, but she is kept under lock and key. I'm of the opinion that benefits her as much as him.
That really is too much, Sherlock. Tormenting me is one of his pastimes, unfortunately.
I suspect you know where the door is, Dr. Watson.
Well said, Miss Doyle. So, I presume you are here to offer your services while Mrs. Hudson is away?
May I... Oh. Well, what do you think? Does my head look big in this? You're under arrest!
Take that off.
Oh, no, really doesn't do much for me. Can't see me at Ascot in this, can you?
She'll be fingering your violin next, Sherlock.
Is that a euphemism?
No, it is not.
What about your big pipe? Now that's got to have some symbolic significance.
It does, actually. Because although I possess one, I don't smoke it. It's purely for show. It was an invention of my friends here. If I'm surrounded by a fog of nebulous smoke, there's more of the phantom and fantastic about me, permanently surrounded, as it were, by shadows. Adds to my mystique. Actually, it was quite a good deception on his part.
There definitely is a hint of the night about you. I wondered why I couldn't detect anything carcinogenic in the room.
Oh, an amateur detective, eh?
When can I start?
Well, as you're here now, you can begin now. No time like the present and all that.
I'll think about it. So, what are you working on at the moment?
We're between cases.
No, we are not. I've just told you this, Watson. If I want to be occupied on something, then I will. If I don't, I won't.
And you don't at the moment?
At the moment, I am desirous of nothing more than afternoon tea, for which it seems you are in my temporary employment.
Oh. But what about Four-Fingered Frank, the Fulham forger? Or the Bloomsbury blackmailer, the curious criminality of the Kensington kidnappers, the perfidious peregrinations of the Pimlico pickpockets, the Carlton Club, your club, I believe, conspirators, not forgetting the East End Golem murders, or the Vauxhall vampire. Oh, that was a good one, that was. And let's not omit the Merryweather of the Yard, a disgraced copper and his band of knocks. And what about the Paddington pyromaniac, eh, Dr. Watson?
How do you know about that one, Miss Charlotte?
Oh, come on, it was in all the papers, Watson. You left your wife temporarily for her. You said the pair of you were getting on like a house on fire, and it was the house you were living in with her that was on fire.
Indeed. Your latest flame, eh, Dr. Watson?
I'd rather draw a veil on it if you don't mind.
Oh, and what about the escapade of the Lithuanian princess and the 24-carat diamonds? And last but no means least, the mysterious disappearance of the
missing tea. Lapsang souchong to be precise, plus 2 crumpets lightly buttered and 1 French fancy, not for me, but for the affable one here. He may go into a coma if otherwise deprived. So if you've finished your parlour game of petty misdemeanours, I have a scowl to cultivate.
Well, please wouldn't have gone amiss, but I can see you are in need of refreshment. Oh, rumour was you knew who Jack the Ripper was. Or the rumour was that you were Jack the Ripper? Back in a tick.
Damned impertinent woman.
I thought she was rather fetching.
Fetching, if you like that sort of thing. Obviously a fan of the penny dreadful. As nearly as annoying as my brother of mine.
What, Mycroft?
I do know the name of my sibling, Watson. I haven't succumbed to amnesia. But it does show some sort of initiative to appoint yourself, I suppose, although it was my decision to do so.
Oh, so it was your decision, was it? Seems she'd rather riled you, I'd say.
Not at all. I just wanted to give her the impression. A temporary upper hand. But why does she want the position?
To help out her aunt?
Really?
Voila! Enjoy! Oh, may I? There you go, checkmate! Well, I'll go and do some other housekeeping-y type things as befitting my status.
Do you know, I don't actually play chess. Isn't your fiancé missing you?
My fiancé? Didn't know I was engaged, let alone in love.
Did I mention love? Most definitely you are, though, particularly since you yourself have just used that word. I merely suggested you were engaged. It doesn't always follow that love is involved, does it? As Shakespeare puts it, many a good hanging hath prevented a bad marriage. I'd be very good at it if I did, though.
Sorry, I don't...
Chess. I'd be exemplary, but no one can match me. Sometimes Watson, the affable one, thinks he's up to it and indulges me, but before you know it, it's over, before it's barely begun. I've anticipated the moves in advance. Perhaps I should let him win one day, made of his esteem some kind. but I think you understand me. You see, when you were introduced to my colleague, I couldn't help but notice, because it's my job and more importantly my vocation, that your ring finger had a small piece of skin that was more translucent than the rest of it, a piece where the ring would normally reside, and so I came to the conclusion that the ring had been hastily removed and is perhaps deposited elsewhere about your person. A purse or so forth, that is unimportant. However, because the removal of the ring had shown up the whiter area on your skin, it is also perfectly feasible to conclude that the ring was not an accurate fit and had been purchased somewhere in haste. What would occasion this? Answer: a shotgun wedding. I notice you pat your stomach quite frequently. Don't worry, Watson, the baby's not yours.
Good Lord. Child, are you up the spout?
Most definitely she is.
And why would I want to do that, Mr. Holmes? Hide my engagement ring if I had one. You could ask my aunt, if she knew of my forthcoming nuptials.
I could, couldn't I? Were it not for the fact that she is now on her way to St. Pancras Station. In any case, you may not have disclosed it to her. You haven't disclosed it to your own mother, have you? In fact, you don't seem unduly unconcerned by her illness. But then again, your mother isn't ill, is she? Unlike Lady Fairfield, you or your accomplice sent the telegram.
Mr. Holmes, Lady Fairfield is old, but she's not ill.
Not yet, she isn't. Not fully, but she will be, thanks to your interference.
And what exactly is my interference?
You have, with the aid of your mother, been administering care to Lady Fairfield, perhaps adding something extra into the mix, imperceptible to the first few weeks, but little by little worsening her condition. Whether your mother is an innocent in all of this or not, I do not know at the moment, but you most certainly aren't. By the way, it was your scent that alerted me to your presence in the room. The smell lingers around you. It is disguised by rather too much cheap perfume, but it is there all the same. I have to imagine a will is involved, and you and your beau would benefit substantially, and you are in love and somewhat desperate financially. You may be in your Sunday best today, but the clothes sit uneasily on you.
Well, I have put on a bit of weight recently.
And I foresee the will has been altered in your favour. You have been in Lady Fairfield's company for a number of years now, and she dotes on you, I imagine. I note she has no children, and this allows you a certain amount of erudition in your vocabulary, but the enunciation from time to time lets you down. I notice you still have a tendency to drop some of your vowels. It is Mr. Holmes, after all, not Mr. Ohms, after all.
I don't know how you can come by all this supposition, because that's what it is. Why would I unveil myself in your household if I knew you, of all people, the great sleuth, discover my machinations?
Simple. Hiding in plain sight.
I can assure you I have committed no crime.
Yes, that is true. No crime has been committed as yet. A crime is in the process, however. It may well be a few weeks or possibly a few months, although given your condition, weeks would be more preferable before the deed has seen its course, by which time your involvement in it will have gone cold and somewhat harder to prove. By sheltering yourself here and unveiling yourself into my household, you believe you can use me as a shield of your innocence and exonerate yourself of all culpability. Isn't that right, Watson?
I'm not... I don't... What?
You are correct. Some of this is supposition, a trait I don't normally trade in, but I am right, aren't I? Your ability around the chessboard demonstrates an ability to plan and scheme. It seems you couldn't stop yourself. You passed yourself off as a flighty and frivolous, an act which entertains my good companion here, but it's not the full story by any means, is it?
Absurd, Mr. Holmes! Just because I fancy to move a knight or a rook, you've concocted a fabric of storytelling and lies.
I also noticed in your list of mostly alliterative crimes, you omitted to say the prisoner of Pimlico. Again, too close to home. Poison is the favoured method of execution by the fairy sex, is it not?
Oh, really? I reckon I could take you on in a good old fist fight if you're up for it. No? So I am a belle dans sans merci, or is that too erudite for me?
As I've said, it doesn't prove it, of course, but in this case, I really must stop using that word. In this instance, I am not after proof, but admission. And if you admit to your wrongdoing, you may have a chance to prevent the crime, the ultimate crime of murder. So I put it to you. You can either see to my household, or you can catch the next train back to Gravesend, which I believe is in 2 hours' time, and stop this heinous act from continuing to its dreadful conclusion, and stop yourself from being arrested. Right the wrong, it is not too late, and you and your fiancé can avoid the hangman's noose and be rich in love, a commodity which is priceless.
Oh, really? You've never been in love, have you, Mr. Holmes?
Frankly, no, I haven't.
No. Or loved?
No.
Or ever will be? You're unlovable, Mr. Holmes. Possessed of a brain, but bereft of a heart. That's a crime in itself, I'd say.
Now, look here, Miss Lottie, that's a bit...
Watson, the girl is right. We both know that. I'm right about her, and she is right about me. It's my belief that she came here to unburden herself, to assuage herself of her guilt. If I hadn't been a detective, maybe I would have been a priest.
Oh, you need empathy for that profession, Mr. Holmes.
You wear a crucifix. You're Roman Catholic. I could have guessed that from your name, Doyle, but the crucifix confirms it.
But...
This is a confession prior to the confession, strange as that may be. Yes, Miss Charlotte?
then why doesn't the girl just go to the cop shop or the nearest church?
Yes. Why doesn't the girl do just that? Police station sounds good. I have a best friend there, I believe. Or you do. Lestrade. He can arrest me any day of the week, if you know what I mean.
The Yard, for all its faults, and there are many, would investigate, and the probability is that you would be arrested and tried. The church would provide a sympathetic ear, but they are also duty-bound and would pass on the details to the police.
And you aren't?
I might say it very much depends on the circumstances. I might say you don't deserve your fate. I think you love your intended, the father of your child to be in. He loves you, but that you also love Mrs. Fairfield for the kindness that she has bestowed on you over the years, and you both love Mrs. Fairfield's money. But which, or who, is the stronger pull? I'm inclined to say that behind every good woman is a bad man. The crime of murder, albeit of an elderly woman, makes the criminal less than a man or a woman, and in both cases, less than human.
Well, now this has been a very interesting afternoon. It seems I am the broken doll, and Mr. Holmes the puppeteer. Will you excuse me? Please, gentlemen, enjoy your tea.
Do I need to advertise for another housekeeper? They can be hard to come by. Good ones, that is.
Holmes, I have absolutely no idea what went on there. Completely confounded me. I much prefer it when we have monstrous dogs and the like to deal with.
Hopefully it will be just the dog it was that died.
What? What dog? There's a dog as well?
Please pay attention, Watson. By that, our plan goes wrong.
Oh, yes, of course. And you believe it will?
Well, it is much better to prevent a crime than to solve one. The swiftest surgery is the least painful, don't you agree? Normally, we conclude crimes. Here we have prescribed one, unique. And I have allowed the perpetrator to call on her conscience and to do the right thing. Let us not forget, I am most commonly referred to as a consulting detective.
Well, the consultation hasn't led to a confession of anything as far as I'm aware.
Well, if you couldn't determine it from her body language and facial expressions. But wait 1 minute, listen. Ah, there it is. The front door has just been opened and closed. Be so good as to look out the window, would you?
Well, She was looking up here. Now she's getting into a hansom cab.
Well then, that's the confession.
It is the most curious case I've ever been involved in with you. We didn't even have to leave the confines of 221B Baker Street. But how can you put all this together from what there is?
Well, there is the back page of The Times newspaper for a start. Although I looked at the nonsense that was in the Strand, it is peripheral vision that attracts the most attention. It was revealed to me all there. Heiress wishes to see fairy folk. I really didn't need to read much more beyond that rather lurid headline. There can't be that many women who have had that style. Maybe there are, it's irrelevant. But once that idea was in my head, it is no great leap to believe that our old friend Laudanum or some other substance was involved in inducing these visions on Lady Fairfield. Maybe a drama employing local children to act as surrogate pixies was also concocted for extra veracity. Who knows? It's true, I don't have all the pieces of the jigsaw, but that doesn't stop me from saying what the picture is. Gestalt, Watson, Gestalt! And now she has seen her sprites. What is there for her to live for? The death wish fulfilled. She can die a contented woman, and Charlotte, like the surrogate daughter she most obviously is, will become the main benefactor.
Good Lord. Extraordinary. I say again, very strange case indeed. It hardly makes sense.
Sometimes the fruit falls from the tree, Watson, and sometimes you have to reach out and pluck it. But it was hardly a case, Watson, hardly that. More an anecdote, but one that, I say again, stopped a murder.
But I can't fathom the logic out. Why didn't she just tell you what she's done?
People don't make sense, Watson. You'll just have to fill in some blanks for yourself. File it under abductive reasoning, if you will, as opposed to deductive reasoning.
Tea? I say, Holmes, you don't think she's put anything in it?
No, I don't.
Oh, well, we could call it the curious case of the case in the hallway and the girl who was almost a murderer.
It is an accurate, if uninspired, description. With a title like that, it may make it into the likes of the Strand one day. I expect it to be nothing more than a mere footnote in my memoirs, however, which I may remind you, you are duty-bound to collate. You are my amanuensis, after all. Yes.
What she said to you about you?
Watson,
Yes?
I want you to know our friendship, it's all that has ever mattered to me. That makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Elementary, Holmes. Elementary.